People think I'm obsessed with this, but I'm okay with it. I am obsessed with it. And I think this is an obsession that doesn't hurt anyone.
Again! Again! Again!
I want one! I want my own army! I want my own planet! I deserve it!
Let's talk about the Sephora-obsessed woman. You know her, you've seen her, hell, you might even be her. She's the one standing outside of Sephora like it's the second coming of Jesus Christ, muttering, "A girl at Sephora is like a kid in a toy shop." Some say their toxic trait is having to go into every Sephora they see. They justify it by saying things like, "At least I'm not spending money on drugs." But babes, consumer capitalism is the drug and Sephora is the dealer. You might be thinking that this is an innocuous and unserious pastime, but Sephora is yet another symptom of the American obsession with commodities and how worshiping corporations keeps you distracted and demoralized. Let's discuss the unhealthy obsession with Sephora and how it traps women into a toxic cycle that leaves both their wallets and minds empty. For some people, Sephora is just a store. For others, it's a lifestyle, a religion, a personality. There are plenty of other stores that sell beauty products, yet Sephora has cultivated a particularly unique cult-like following of addicts who are always looking for their next dopamine high, where every lipstick feels like a dose of confidence and every haul feels like a binge. I want to be clear, in moderation, makeup and skincare products are harmless. I personally own one foundation, one mascara, one blush, one powder, and maybe 2 or 3 lipsticks and like 2 eyebrow pencils. That's my makeup collection. I only have one face. How much makeup do I need? But when it transforms into an obsession, and we're talking about having drawers upon drawers upon drawers filled with makeup product after makeup product, that's when it becomes unhealthy and concerning. But why are so many women so obsessed with Sephora? It has a lot to do with Sephora's brand experience. I can attest to you the euphoria that you feel when you shop at Sephora. The sleek black and white decor, the pristine radiant lighting, the seamless organization, the aesthetic product packaging, the larger-than-life billboards of all the celebrity brands, the smell of all of the perfumes when you walk through the aisles. It's intoxicating. In an age where Sephora hauls permeate every corner of the internet that's targeted at women, it's teaching young women and girls to get their whole personality from being obsessed with beauty brands. Like, I'm just a girl with a Sephora addiction. But I ask, who are you outside of consumer capitalism? That is to say, who are you when you're not defining yourself by what you buy, where you shop, and the brands that you worship? If your entire personality or a significant part of your personality revolves around the thrill of a Sephora haul or a new beauty product drop, who are you when the shopping bag is empty? Who are you without a corporation telling you who to be? When your identity revolves around flaunting a brand as a marker of success, it's not self-expression, it's corporate programming. Sephora isn't selling confidence, it's selling the illusion of status. Sephora's brand oozes luxury, and while the products are pricey, it's still more accessible than buying designer handbags or designer shoes. When you look at the comments of influencers showing off their gluttonous Sephora hauls, people are like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to be this rich one day. Oh my God, this is so goals. Oh my God, I wish this was me." When your hashtag goals are to have a drawer full of makeup, a house full of makeup, I'm concerned. This is why we're breeding a generation of women and men, but we're not gonna get into the men for the purposes of this video. We're talking about women, but this is why we're breeding a whole generation of women who are underdeveloped, and to borrow a term from the financial diet here on YouTube, who are adult toddlers, because they will justify it under the condition of I'm a woman. And any critique on my behavior is an attack on women's empowerment. And it's not just these influencers who are saying that their overconsumption of beauty products is inherently empowering. It's also Sephora themselves in their marketing. Sephora advertisements also sell us this idea of empowerment. Taglines like "We belong to something beautiful" suggest that buying Sephora products connects you to a beautiful community where belonging is contingent on consumption. The models are diverse to appeal to the inclusivity of women of color. Sephora's brand messaging paints them as a place that you go to be empowered as a woman and to find community. But their labor practices tell a different story. Sephora is currently embroiled in a wage theft lawsuit where employees, who are of course predominantly women, are alleging wage theft through Sephora not giving mandatory breaks, breaks and not properly paying overtime. They're also embroiled in a worker retaliation lawsuit where a former manager filed a federal lawsuit alleging hiring practices required that the race of the staff in local stores match the demographic of customers in the store. The employee, who is Hispanic, says she was fired for not hiring enough white people. And earlier this year, it was reported that Sephora celebrated reaching $10 billion in sales, a feat that they said, quote, could not be reached without the dedication and efforts of all of their employees, not by giving their employees a raise or a bonus, but instead by giving them stale cookies. That was their reward for their hard work. In addition, Sephora is owned by the fashion conglomerate LVMH, who for decades has perpetrated the most egregious labor exploitation, mostly of women of color, which I discussed in my luxury brands are a scam video from a few months ago. I go more in depth in that video, but in short, LVMH-owned brand Loro Piana paid Peruvian wool farmers just $280 for sweaters that they sold for $9,000. Dior, who's also owned by LVMH and is also found in Sephora, paid undocumented workers just $2 an hour to produce handbags that they sold for nearly $3,000. And LVMH workers across the board have been forced to work in unsafe, grueling conditions to produce their products. And this isn't even getting into all of the various controversies from labor exploitation to allegations of racism surrounding other brands that are sold in Sephora, like Tarte, who has a long rap sheet of racism towards Black women, Estee Lauder, where children were found working in fields producing jasmine for their perfumes, Fenty Beauty, who's been accused of using mica for makeup, sourced from mines in India, employing child labor, and many others who could warrant their own videos. So when Sephora and their devotees frame the act of purchasing makeup as an act of empowerment, it's a prime example of a concept called choice feminism, a framework that took shape in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Choice feminism asserts that individual women's choices are inherently empowering, regardless of the context or societal implications of these choices. Choice feminism argues that personal choices like becoming rich, or in this case, hoarding makeup, are valid and should not be judged so long as it's done by a woman. It frames feminism as a result of lifestyle rather than collective political action. Of course, women should be entitled to make their own decisions and have self-determination, but as Bell Hooks puts it, not all choices are created equal. They exist within a context of power dynamics and systemic oppression. But choice feminism is why Stan Twitter will be like, congrats Riri on becoming a billionaire. Yes, look at our billionaire queen, framing it solely as an accomplishment that a woman was able to become a billionaire without thinking of the exploitation that it takes to achieve billionaire status in the first place. Meanwhile, Rihanna's fast fashion lingerie line, Savage X Fenty, which helped catapult her to billionaire status, scored worse than Shein for its ethical practices, including poor labor standards, especially in regards to workers' health and safety, a poor environmental impact, and a lack of supply chain disclosures, and Remake, a nonprofit for human rights and climate justice in the clothing industry's annual fashion accountability report. Women make up 80% of the garment industry, so it's clear that women are amongst those being exploited by fast fashion brands like Savage X Fenty. Also, people in the global south, including women, are most affected by the pollution caused by fast fashion and makeup products that are overproduced and overconsumed and quickly discarded, leaking microplastics and all kinds of chemicals and dyes into their water when they wash ashore, as we've talked about countless times on this channel. This is why any movement for the liberation of women needs to confront and dismantle systems of capitalism, systems of imperialism, systems of Western hegemony that allow women in the global south to be exploited, and anyone in the global north for that matter. Selling eyeshadows with the future is female printed on it, it's not gonna cut it. It's just lip service. It's a distraction. And all of this contributes to an eroding away of women's intelligence. Rich billionaires like Bernard Arnault, who owns LVMH, distract women by encouraging them to fill up their drawers with excessive amounts of makeup products that are way more than what they need. And so you get so lost in those products. You get so distracted and wrapped up in that shiny packaging, in that glittery eyeshadow. And it's so bright that it's blinding, figuratively speaking. And this is how they convince you to not demand more for yourself. You already have everything you need. You've got all the makeup you need. Why would you want anything else for yourself, right? And the need to overconsume all of these products is born out of internalized misogyny. Susan J. Douglas's book, Enlightened Sexism, The Seductive Message That Feminism's Work is Done, critiques the idea that buying the right products or achieving a certain aesthetic equates to empowerment. And so this commodification of feminism leads to a focus on individual consumption instead of systemic change. She says, we are taught to buy our way into empowerment and self-expression, which turns feminism into a lifestyle rather than a political movement. Enlightened sexism is feminist in its outward appearance, but sexist in its intent. It insists that women have made it, so now they can focus on the trappings of privilege, becoming as rich, thin, and pretty as possible. And this is something that I've talked about in regards to luxury fashion, but it also applies here with luxury makeup and beauty products from Sephora. Far too many people are trying to be, look, and act rich because being rich is seen as the most virtuous kind of person that you can be. Being poor or having proximity in any way to poverty is vilified as you're lazy, you're immoral. And so people go out of their way to prove it to themselves as well as to others that, look, I can do a Sephora haul. I can afford a $50 foundation. I can afford a $40 concealer. I can afford a $60 serum. But imagine, just imagine, close your eyes and imagine with me. I see you, you don't got your eyes closed. I want you to close your eyes and imagine with me. How powerful would we be if we in the working class united with each other? I'll say it again. How powerful would it be if we in the working class actually stood up for ourselves? Instead of trying to align with power, we find our own power within ourselves because there's more of us than there are of them. And we actually were standing up in opposition to the rich. What a concept. I know. What if? Instead of imagining and aspiring to have a drawer filled with makeup that you don't need, why don't we aspire to a world where everybody eats, where no one has to go hungry, where everyone can have a roof over their head? That's what I aspire to. That's what I want, okay? Where everyone can have health care. These are the aspirations we need to be having as women. And so many of these trends often go back to people trying to emulate rich people. A lack of class solidarity. Commodity fetishism distracts women from asking questions like, how is this multi-billion-dollar empire being sustained? Who's making these products? Where are they being sourced from? We're so distracted by the glitz and glamour that we never ask those questions. That's the collective we. I know some of you are, but that's a collective we. And with this kind of mindset, we don't learn to think out of the box. We don't learn to disrupt the status quo. We want to be the status quo. We don't want to destroy the table. We want to see it at the table. A lot of these women, these Sephora addicts, all they want to do is go to Starbucks, another problematic organization, because it serves them. The caramel macchiato isn't even that good. The pumpkin spice latte isn't even that good. And it's overpriced. They just want to go to Starbucks. They just want to wear their Lululemon. They just want to go to Sephora and not have to think the ways in which these institutions contribute to exploitation. And that is the problem. Ignorance is not bliss. American individualism breeds selfishness and it breeds self-obsession. And I'm not entirely blaming people because we all live in societies. We all are indoctrinated to believe certain things. We all are indoctrinated to believe that America is the greatest country on earth. And so people are very resistant to change. People are very resistant to opening up their minds. And so you end up in a world where everyone is trying to live like influencers, where influencer culture has young women in a chokehold. And this dynamic is so evident in the ways in which these influencers promote wearing excessive amounts of makeup. We've all come to accept that as normal. Because why in 2016 were we, I'm included in this, why were we pulling up to our Thanksgiving dinners in a full beat? Why were we highlighting and contouring and cutting the crease and baking and shaking? All of that just to eat mashed potatoes and pumpkin pie with our family members? Why were we doing that? Because influencers told us to. They normalized heavy makeup. They normalized having entire IKEA drawers filled with makeup product after makeup product. I've said this before, this might be your first time watching me, but if you are regular old Betty Sue living in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or regular old Andrea from the Bronx, why are you pulling up to your job to sell insurance for State Farm in a full beat? Influencers are paid to make you think that you should. You don't. I'm not talking about a little mascara, a little powder, a little concealer here or there. No. I'm talking about wearing like 50, 11 things on your face. You don't need to be picture perfect all the time. I've come across countless tutorials of influencers trying to teach women how to do catfish makeup, which is when you wear so much makeup to a point where you look like a completely different person. There is nothing wrong with wearing makeup. I'm not gonna pull a JP from Love is Blind. If you know, you know. I'm just saying, when we are obsessed with it, when we are wearing it to a point of disguising ourselves and looking like completely different people, I'm concerned. What happens when we wash it down the drain? It's like getting dressed up. Getting dressed up feels good, okay? But are you comfortable in your pajamas? Are you comfortable in your sweatpants? Are you comfortable in your hoodie? Are you comfortable in your jeans? Or do you always have to be the belle of the ball? All it's doing is making us miserable, and it's all by design. These social media platforms target us with content that's making us obsess over our faces and bodies. The other day, I was scrolling through Instagram, minding my business, and by the way, I don't follow people who are superficial and shallow. I don't. But even me, I'm being targeted with content, and I took a screenshot, like full facelift at 34. Why? Or what I eat in a day to lose weight. Why? I'm not looking at content like that. Yeah, it ends up in my algorithm just because the algorithm knows that I'm a woman and they're like, these are the things that women prioritize. Let me try to sell her on this. Why are we teaching this to women? What is that communicating to our daughters? What is that communicating to our nieces, to our sisters, to our female relatives, to our friends, to you, to me? And in the case of Sephora addicts, when your personality centers around a store that sells products that are purely superficial, what does that say about who you are and what you prioritize? Patriarchy sells us the idea that our looks are the ultimate form of currency. And so when you obsess over your looks, you're playing right into patriarchy's hands, right into misogyny's hands. We shouldn't be normalizing shopping at a superficial store where you can buy 3 things and you've already spent $300. Like, are groceries not expensive enough? Who got Sephora money? I haven't shopped at Sephora for several years, personally, and it's really easy to do so. In a world where there are so many messages telling you that you're not beautiful, that you're not good enough, I know it can make you feel very powerless, but you are so much more powerful than you think. In 2025, set up that therapy session with money that you would have used at Sephora. Go to your local library. Read some books. Channel your inner proletariat goddess, okay? Read some books about workers' rights, about mutual aid, about global movements for liberation. Cut off that family member that keeps telling you, you look like you gained some weight. I had to say it in the voice of one of my aunties. Cut off that family member that keeps telling you that you look like you've gained some weight every Christmas. Let go of those superficial relationships. Unfollow that brain-rotted influencer, because the greatest currency that you could ever have is not your beauty insider reward points. It's knowing your worth. Knowing your worth outside of your looks. Knowing your power. As Audre Lorde called us to do, practicing radical self-love and radical self-care. And no, that's not by doing a 12-step skincare routine or wearing 20 different makeup products on your face. Nope. That's being able to go without and dabble here and there, still have fun. Wearing makeup can be fun, but also not obsessing over it, doing so in moderation, not contributing to an already broken system. Climate catastrophe. Like, do you know we have 30 minutes?
Are you kidding me? 30, yes.
Do you know our climate is just getting worse? If you don't, you can check out some of my past videos where I get into it in depth. I'm not gonna do it in this one, but do you know we have 30 minutes? Finally, redirect the time, the energy, and emotional labor that you spend going to Sephora or just obsessing over the way you look, and pour them back into causes that actually uplift women and other marginalized groups, especially those who are most affected, like those in the global South. That's just a few things that you can do to deprogram and to grow and to be invested in uplifting yourself and others. And so that's all I've got today. If you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you really liked it, hit that subscribe button. And I'd love to hear from you all in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on this Sephora obsession that women are taught to have? Have you ever had an obsession with Sephora? Have you unlearned it? Are you still trying to unlearn it? Because I always say, it's easier to learn something than to unlearn something. So I know people are at different parts of their journey, and I respect that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to see what I'm up to outside of YouTube, you can check out my social media profiles down here, as well as my Patreon, where you can help to support my channel. We have $1.50 tiers and $5 tiers as well that might work for you. And besides all that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all next time.